The lower court did something that King Solomon never would have done. He cut this family in half, just to the detriment of everybody. And the court reunited the family, which was a very positive outcome. And the reason why I tell you about that for the last piece of the puzzle is that we are now more and more engaged in judicial education and training for lawyers to understand disability as an element of diversity. Disability is part of the natural human experience, and disability, that's something to be understood, accommodated as appropriate, but certainly not discriminated against because of, like, skin color, gender, or any other characteristic you might think of. Now, you can see that this overview of BBI does cross the disability spectrum. We do a lot of cases on physical disability as well, in the prison context, in the real world context. We heavily focus on mental health issues and cognitive disabilities. We recently have had terrific fortune to partner with the Ellen Sachs Institute in California. Ellen Sachs, who's a brilliant law professor at the University of Southern California and an award-winning author, happens to have schizophrenia. She wrote a book called The Center Cannot Hold, and it's about her struggles with schizophrenia as a professional woman. That book won all sorts of awards, and she was awarded a Genius Grant, a MacArthur Fellowship, on the basis of that award. Thanks to her generosity in helping to support us, we are now trying to understand issues of support and decision-making around persons with schizophrenia and serious mental illness. And it's a fascinating, challenging, and different context in many ways than developmental disabilities. There are different issues. There's issues of homelessness, of substance abuse, more likely, of episodic crisis, of less family support. I'm overgeneralizing, but there's a whole host of issues which we're trying to understand. So we're working now on issues of advanced directives, mental health proxies, power of attorneys, and other ways, other tools that we can develop scientifically as alternatives to guardianship. So, for example, with our partners in Kansas, another brilliant group, Mike Waymeyer, you might know the name, and Carrie Sjogren, we're presently validating a tool called the Supported Decision-Making Inventory, which essentially, as opposed to an IQ test or a Vineland test, is a test of the environment. What does the world you look like? What does the world you live in look like? What's supportive about it? What's accommodating about it? And you know what? Maybe it's just that the supports in your world are lacking and it's not you. And that you can participate in many different ways if these sorts of supports are met to the maximum extent possible, within reasonable bounds. And we're trying to validate that test so it can be used by people like yourselves and others to do assessments in court or otherwise to show these are the reasons why this person is not doing what they need to be doing. Now, interestingly, in that regard, we are now, and this is the feed into Laura, through Jonathan Martinez, our brilliant legal counsel, he has developed relationships with states. So, for example, we have a project going with the state of Vermont. Jonathan calls it Coordinated Culture of Supports. Culture of Coordinated Supports. Laura can speak to that, where we're working with the whole state to try to understand. We're working with the heads of agencies and the deputy heads to try to understand what is it inherent in your systems that's somehow blocking supports for people with disabilities. Is it systems issues like Ryan King in Washington, D.C.? Is it inappropriate assessment techniques like Leslie in Maine? Is it just parental attitudes or other sorts of family matters that were driving Jenny Hatch? Again, nobody's good or bad. I said this to Leslie's mother at the trial. This is not about whether you are a good or bad parent. This is about what Leslie wants to do as a self-determined individual. And it doesn't mean putting her in harm's way. There's a thing called dignity of risk, which a lot of people study. This is not about putting people in suicidal situations, in dangerous situations. Any of one of us would be the first to say it. Of course, many judges, I've had judges say in cases I was involved with that exact fact. So you want to put this person in harm's way? It's not about that. But again, you can see the pressure, like the case, it's that Casey Martin theme. We have to protect these individuals. And we would say within reasonable bounds, there's a dignity of risk that we all face every day in which people with disabilities should be able to reasonably share in. And to the extent that we deny that, we deny aspects of inclusion in society and personhood, which enable people, we also would say, to flourish, to earn money, to pay taxes, to arguably require less services or different types of services that may or may not be cost effective. We don't know yet. Let's try it. That's what we're doing in Vermont. Now we'll turn to Kentucky. Come on up, Laura. I think, Laura, correct me if I'm wrong, we were delighted through the National Resource Center to make a grant to Kentucky. Is that right?
That is not correct.
Tell me what's correct. Tell me what's correct.
So we are.
Introduce yourself.
I am Laura Butler. I work at the Human Development Institute here at UK. Our grant comes actually internally from the Human Development Institute, and it's called a Fund for Excellence grant. And this is the second one we've gotten around supported decision making, and we partner with our sister agency, Protection and Advocacy in the state. The first grant was to just basically spread information as best we could with the small amount of money we had around the state that there was such a thing as supported decision making.
So I'm going to be your interviewer. Was there an awareness of this concept prior in the state?
Not much. When I first really learned about it because a few years ago the AEIDD conference was in Louisville. And I went and I heard Jonathan speak, and he was speaking about Jenny Hatch. It was shortly after the Jenny Hatch case, and was speaking about some of that stuff. I thought, well, this sounds exactly like the work that we should be doing because we already do work around supported employment and supported living and all these other things, and this is exactly what we need to be working on with HDN in Kentucky. And I went to Camille at P&A and said, have you heard of this concept? And she had. But because resources are tight everywhere, nobody had a chance to really explore it. So we wrote this grant for this Fund for Excellence fund.
What's the title of the grant?
My Choice Kentucky. And it's My Choice Kentucky, Exploring Supported Decision Making in the Commonwealth is the full title.
First grant of its time in Kentucky.
The first one, that we had in Kentucky. And so we just went out and started talking to people whoever would listen basically and said, here's a thing that you can do. Instead of guardianship is what we were primarily talking about at the time.
Who were you talking to? Parents or counselors?
We were talking to parents, professionals, and individuals, so whoever we could get to listen to us. Basically, we went out and talked. We would talk to groups. We would talk to people. We would talk to whoever, really.
What was the
teachers?
What was the reaction? What was some of the feedback?
In every single group, I would say at least one person said, "I didn't know there was any other option," which was the whole point of the project, was to let people know that there was another option. We didn't reach as many people as we would like to in that, only because we just didn't have the resources, really.
Is the project still going on?
So the newest, it is still, My Choice Kentucky is still happening, but we have now moved into our second grant, and that's sort of a pilot of up to 10 people that we will work with to help implement supported decision making in their lives. They can have a guardian, not have a guardian.
Are we working with you on that?
And Jonathan is, yes, so we're partnered with Burton Blatt on that, and Jonathan is one of our partners. So Jonathan Martinez, legal director at Burton Blatt.
Just as a footnote, the reason why I thought we may have been funding Kentucky.
Because he did. I mean, you didn't fund us, but there were
every year through the National Resource Center, what do we make? Maybe 5 grants?
Yeah.
To states to foster thinking about decision-making support. So let's get another one going here in Kentucky. Yeah,
and that is something that we looked at. It just wasn't working out for us at the time. But anyway, so we have this other small grant, and it's basically Jonathan's providing some technical legal support for us, but it's basically Camille and I, Camille from Protection Advocacy, is you in the room.
Camille, come on up. They can't see you. Come on. It's a game show. Come on down, Camille.
Camille has a cuter outfit on than I do, so you should probably say her.
All right. Come into the picture.
Camille and I have been working on this project, and so
none of us were prepared, so it's okay.
It's okay. So we're just getting started. We are, because we are a university, this is a research project, so we are going through the IRB approval process.
So you have 10 people?
We are recruiting 10 people.
10 people in total. And who will be those people? What sort of people?
So people between the ages of 18 and 30 who have identified disability. They can have a guardian, not have a guardian, but that they're interested in implementing supported decision-making in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll work with them and their supporters to learn the basics of supported decision-making and how that can be implemented in their lives. Work with them to pursue restoration of their rights if they want to do that,
mm-hmm.
if they have a guardianship, if they have a guardian. And so that's going to be exciting. We're going to do some pre and post measures.
When do you hope to have some findings that you can share with people?
Well, our kind of informal findings are, I won't go into real specifics about this, but there was a case, a young lady who went before a judge to have her rights restored. She had a public guardian, state guardian.
Where was that?
Here.
In this county?
Yes. And she went before the judge, and the judge denied her petition. Her
petition for termination of guardianship?
Mm-hmm. And then she got appointed an attorney and had a supported decision making. She was basically already using supported decision making, but
let me just clarify. Like they basically denied, the terminate or looking at restoring her rights. And at that point, she had not been appointed an attorney. So then we actually approached the court, the judge, and requested. Yes, myself. Yeah. And requesting an attorney be appointed and for a continuance on the case so that it could be heard at a later date, that we could get an attorney on board and that we could work with them and educate them on the use of supported decision making, because it's such a new concept for a lot of people. And then we went to court. So. Yeah.
And so after, same judge, after introducing supported decision making to the court, that was basically the only change that was made. I mean, she had an appointed attorney. He fully restored her rights.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great success story.
Yeah.
So how is she? What's the first name of the woman again?
Susie.
Susie. So how's Susie doing today?
She's doing great. And actually, if just hot off the press, Exceptional Families, it's a magazine that the Commonwealth Council on Developmental Disabilities helps fund. There's a story featured about Susie. And she's very open about it. She wants to talk about it, and it talks about her process and what she wants.
So that's a great success for P&A. I mean, P&A is always doing those sorts of groundbreaking cases. So where does P&A, or where do you go next with you're going to highlight Susie's example? What do you hope to accomplish as an organization then from this?
I think we would like to continue to see success in the 10 cases in hopes of maybe in the future continuing to collaborate with you all and HTI in hopes of getting more funds and maybe working with other guardianship systems to be able to see more and really educating, because Laura can talk about this, what we really need to do is we need to go in there and educate the education system, teachers, we need to educate appointed attorneys, judges. So there's a lot of work to do, but we need more funds.
Yes, always.
And it will help to get the results of the research, like Michael Waymeyer and that you all are doing, to have that empirical evidence to support it, because we do like to use evidence-based practices.
I think it would be also important, you're probably doing this, to document carefully Susie's transition. What it was like before, interview her, create a record that's useful, that people, almost a case study, that people can look towards. Since that happened, have you had other similar requests, or have other people taken notice?
We but this is.
Come on up. Here.
Oh, I'm fine.
You like Beyonce?
What was the question? I'm sorry.
So has there been other interest in?
Yes, and actually that's a very recent, we actually started July 1st with the state fiscal year. That's when we really started trying to promote this. So we're actually, we are reaching out to the community, and, if people are interested, if you are a person with a disability who is interested in learning more about support decision making in this project and would like P&A's representation, we ask that you call us. We are actually in the process of talking to a couple more individuals who are interested. We really would like to have that 18 to
30 is kind of the goal, just
Yes.
because that's the transition.
especially like kid, because I think we would like to look. I know you had one of the reasons choosing that 18 to 21 is to work more with the school system.
Mhm.
So
That transitional
yeah.
time. What do you think about, and there are experts in the room, I'm sure, in child education, how we can infuse this to below 18 so that IEPs and others have this as a natural part of, it could be, not being glib, what kind of milk do you want today? Chocolate milk or
Yeah, I
white
think
milk?
that's
Building
really,
this in.
I think that's really important for just to let all students make age appropriate decisions that are respected, so that they learn how to make decisions, because it's a skill, and you can't expect a 30-year-old person who's never made any decision, even whether they want milk or water with dinner, to then go and make big life decisions and be successful at it. So I think we need to make sure that we're not setting people up for failure by just saying, okay, here, you can go make all your own choices. But if we can start in those younger grades, like DC public schools do, with having basically implementing support decision making at a young age, and letting people make decisions that are respected, and then those decisions grow just like all of ours do, so that they're able, when they turn 18 or 21 or whatever the age is, that they can then make those larger life decisions with or without support, and they can have had practice at it, and that they can be more confident in their decision making, and use those self-determination skills a little bit better.
And you should know that, or you may know, there are 2 states presently that have enacted into law forms, like contracts, that can be drafted for supported decision making. Now again, notice that supported decision making can be in the context of a partial guardianship. Maybe it's power of attorney or advance directive. It doesn't have to be all or nothing, and it can move gradually towards fuller supported decision making. So in Texas, there's a form, you can look it up on the website, in which an individual can sign with a supporter. These are the decisions that I'd like help on. These are the decisions that I don't want help on. This is how I want it. And everybody signs, it's notarized, and it's considered a contract that other people are to respect. Now you may ask, what about if a bad decision is made and a supporter has kind of fostered that decision? I believe in Texas law, lawyers always thinking, that there is no liability for supporters in good faith who help people make decisions which may turn out not to be so good outcomes. Now, who of us in the room hasn't made a bad decision? Everybody's married forever, all kids are great, and everything else is fine. So that was an issue, of course, to what extent the supporters could freely be involved in good faith. Obviously, if they're telling them to go rob a bank, that's a different story. That's outside of reasonable bounds. But that was very important. And I would recommend you go to the web or to the National Resource Center, and we have a whole listing of forms. Jonathan and I have just been commissioned by AAIDD, American Association of Intellectual Developmental Disability, to write a book for practitioners, something called Theory to Practice or something like that, on supported decision making, at the back of which we'll have forms and suggestions and so forth. The idea being that each chapter can stand by itself and can be an online module, which we of course would make available freely to you guys. So we have some basic chapters, the educational context, the vocational rehabilitation context, the health context, and we hope that it will begin to spread word in a practical way about this at the same time as a as a professor, I'm still writing the pointy head books for Cambridge University Press about the theory and the research underlying supported decision making. But we're very excited about these practical applications.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing we hope to get from the project we have with our 10 participants is to get stories from people here in Kentucky who have done this and who are willing to share their experiences and to show, to talk, whether it's the supporters or the people talking about what their concerns were going in, how they implemented it practically in their lives, some of the things they learned along the way that didn't work. One of the cool things that Susie did was she made a dream board or a vision board with some of her supporters, and it was really cool. And it had what Susie wanted on the board, just so,
oh, you should document that.
It's documented.
Oh, great.
So they were
post that on our supported decision making website because we'd love to disseminate that. You're probably doing it on HDI.
Yeah,
so as well. Yeah.
Really sad.
We'll follow up with that.
But so it's got they were smart enough to do it on a cork board because your dreams and goals change sometimes. So it was very well thought out. She sat down and they made a list of the things, what her goals were and things she wanted to do, places she wanted to go. And they found pictures that matched and put it all up on this board. And even, in 2018, I want to go here. In 2020, I want to go here. These are the places, people I want to spend time with. It was really, really cool. And then on the back, they put pictures and names of her team, basically, the people who were supporting her. And that was a really cool thing. They ended up not using it in court, but it was still cool.
We didn't need it.
They didn't need it.
Yeah.
But it was really cool. And I think a good way that we've recommended people get started, because a lot of times the first question is, how do I get started? And just using that as a jumping off point, even for a person-centered plan, just to have the person, if a vision board is something that they want to do, or even just brainstorm a list of what you want to do. Just imagine your perfect life and what does it look like, and just put that out there, and then the person can explain that to their supporters and why these different things that they put on there
we
are
all
important.
did that. It wouldn't be a bad idea.
It would, I'm gonna do one. I think they're pretty cool. But yeah, so that's one of the cool things that she did. But we're hoping to use stories like that and stories from some other people. We hope to get enrolled in the project to show people here in the state that it can work. I keep using the example of, because people say, well, what if something happens? What if, they make a bad choice?
Right.
Well, it depends on the bad choice they're going to make. If we walked out here and Camille was getting ready to walk in front of a bus, I wouldn't say, Camille, would you like to discuss why that's a bad choice? Maybe we should weigh the pros and cons of this. No, I would reach out and grab her from in front of the bus.
Yeah.
There's a difference between, oh, well, that's her choice to go out and walk in front of the bus, and helping people make decisions. And at the end of the day, some of those decisions might not be the ones that we would make.
Just as another footnote relevant to P&A, Jonathan Martinez at BBI has started, I think, among the first legal clinics in Washington, D.C., out of our Washington, D.C. offices that will just focus on self-determination, supported decision-making for individuals with disabilities. And we hope and would love to be partners with you in some ways to help facilitate what you're doing. We'll learn a lot from you guys. And thank you both very much. I got to introduce our next guest star.
Give our emails if somebody's interested.
Yes, would you like to give your information?
Sure.
Or should we pass that on later?
Well, so my email address is laura.smith2@uky.edu. You can email me there, and then Camille.
You can also contact me at Camille, CAMILLE.Collins, COLLINS @ky.gov.
And the Burton-Blatt Institute is just bbi.syr.edu. If you look under our projects, you can go to all these different websites. It's all free of charge, all the publications.
Yep.
And thank you both for what you do in Kentucky. Before we open it up for questions, I want to introduce one more special guest about what BBI is doing, which ties to this. And that has to do with the important subject of financial independence and financial security and financial literacy for people with disabilities around the country. Building on our supported decision-making work, BBI, of course, is very focused on livable wages and finances so that people with disabilities can live in the community effectively to the extent that that's possible. Barry Whaley, who's on the BBI leadership team, directs a very large project here in Lexington and around the southern states, which he'll tell you about, called the Southeast ADA Project. And I thought it'd be very useful for Barry, maybe tell him a little bit about what the project, and reflect a little bit of what you heard. And then maybe we'll open it up for comments if
definitely.
that's okay.
This is what happens when your boss says, hey, I want you to talk for a few minutes. Okay.
Well, this will be worth hearing.
Little does he know that I can talk for 2 or 3 hours, so settle in. I'm often asked, Syracuse University, why are you in the Southeast? You know, I mean, we're based in New York, right? We've got that kind of Yankee kind of image associated with us, New England, the Mid-Atlantic. But really, I'm sorry, Walt, let me do that, and maybe I'll even grab that other microphone in a minute. It makes perfect sense when you think about the mission of the Burton Blatt Institute and really its global reach in enabling people with disabilities to live in full participation in their community, economic independence, social independence. It makes perfect sense that we're in the Southeast. And so let's start with a little demographics. The Southeast is home to roughly 80 million people. Of those 80 million people, 22 million people have a significant disability that affects a major life area. So for that reason alone, BBI should be in the Southeast. We looked actually the other day, 20% of the top 50 metropolitan areas in the country are in the Southeast. So we have a large population base. So we have a great deal of affluency in that 20% of population, but we also have some of the most abjectly poor geographic areas in the country. Consider Eastern Kentucky, consider South Georgia. Peter and I have just spent a couple of days this week in the Mississippi Delta, and tremendous amount of poverty and economic disparity. So for those reasons, BBI should be in the Southeast. So my role at Burton Blatt Institute, I'm the director of the Southeast ADA Center. And the Southeast ADA Center is based in Atlanta. And as Peter said, actually, I live in Lexington, so often I'm telecommuting from Lexington, but I do spend a fair amount of time in Atlanta. And we serve the 8 southeastern states. So our area is from Kentucky to Florida, from Mississippi to the Carolinas. And our mission is to provide accurate information on the Americans with Disabilities Act. One of the things we find is a great many people, if I say the ADA, think I'm talking about the American Dental Association, have no clue about the law, have no clue about what their rights are under the Americans with Disabilities Act. And that includes people with disabilities. But not only their rights, but what are their responsibilities? Because there's a balance, right? I mean, at the end of the day, the Americans with Disabilities Act is civil rights legislation. It is designed to equal the playing field. It is designed to provide equal opportunity for people. It's not designed for preferential treatment. But oftentimes people don't understand that. So that's the mission, the overall mission of the Southeast ADA Center. We are part of the ADA National Network. There are 10 centers like ours. We are funded by NIDLR, the National Institute of Disability, Independent Living, and Rehabilitation Research. Boy, I got it right the first time. I'm quite proud of myself. That's part of ACL and part of Health and Human Services. So those are the people who fund us, our center, as well as the other 9 centers. We also have a knowledge translation center that kind of at the end of the day takes what we do and puts it into practice, and that's at the University of Washington. So there are 4 key things that we do at the Southeast ADA Center. The most important thing, the number one thing that we do is we provide technical assistance. We provide technical assistance to people with disabilities, to their families, to businesses, architects, engineers, anybody who would have an intersection between their work and